everyone. In just a minute, I'm going to be introducing author Mira T. Lee, and we're going to be talking about her debut novel, Everything Here is Beautiful. And it was so good. I can't tell you how good this novel is. It just came out in January, and I see it everywhere, all over Instagram and Facebook, and people are loving this book, and there is good reason for that because it is amazing. So, anyway, guys, here is Mira. Hi, everyone. Today I am so excited to be speaking with author Mira T. Lee about her debut novel. And there it is. Everything Here is Beautiful. Look at that cover, Mira.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That is so stunning. It's unbelievable. I mean, you must be so happy with that cover.
I am actually, and I was nervous about it because I'm very particular. I'm a graphic designer, but it turned out great.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Oh my God, Mira, this book is crazy. I've seen it everywhere, like on Instagram, Facebook. I mean, the buzz it's getting right now is well deserved for you because when I got it, I started reading it, and then I'm like, I got so hooked on it. I can tell you, I read a lot of books, okay? Every day I read books. I read every word in this book. Your phrasing and the way I was drawn into these characters, I didn't want to miss a word. I really didn't. It was really good. So you must be so proud. Like I said, debut novel, I mean, and it's doing really well. And I have to tell you, so I was a little bit scared because when you start talking about mental illness, everybody gets like, I don't know if I would go
believe
there.
me, I know.
Yeah, you had to write it, right? And but I love the way you go back and forth with the characters because I got so drawn into her, into Lucia, who is for everybody out there who hasn't read it, she's been diagnosed as schizophrenic and lots of other things, but I think schizophrenia is probably her major, right?
Yeah.
But the way you got into her brain, I was like, how did you do that? How did you get into the way she was? Because you love her. I ended up loving her.
Yeah. Well, she was definitely the trickiest character for me to write because she's brilliant and she's quirky and she has this very unique way of seeing the world. She's perceptive. She kind of finds beauty everywhere and she's got this sense of wonder. And so, that's when she's like, happy, healthy Lucia. And so I had to really reach because I felt like I'm not sure I'm as brilliant as her, to be honest. And so I struggled and I had to just kind of be very, very perceptive of everything around me. And if I ever thought, Lucia might see it this way, I would jot it down. I would have to remember because I don't think that I naturally see things quite the way she does. And so she was tricky for me to write. And then for the parts where she's kind of not so lucid, or she might be, kind of falling into psychosis. That part, I have had experience being around people who are in that state, and I also did a lot of reading, a lot of memoirs, a lot of blogs by people who do have schizophrenia have written about their experiences, and so I also pulled from that for to write that side of her. But she was a very broad character, and so I had to cover a lot of different sides of her. But I love her character. She's by no means perfect, but it was important to me that I get to portray her in all her many facets.
Yeah, and we don't give any spoilers away. So
yes.
If you hear me talking around it, it's just because I want everybody to experience this book. Is like it has layers and layers. And so her older sister Miranda, okay. And first of all, is that your name?
No, it's actually funny because Miranda was this character that I created quite a long time ago, and I didn't mean it to be similar to my name. It might have been subconscious, but that was always her name, and so all the names were always just there, and so I had always just kept them. Yeah.
Well, I knew it wasn't like you, but I was like, maybe she took her whole name.
I know. Me too. And then people pointed that out, and it's like, oh yeah.
Right. And their relationship, I mean, they're 7 years apart, but Miranda's the older sister. Now I have children, and I'm an older sister too. I have a younger brother, not that much younger, but it's like you take on that parenting role when both your parents are gone, like
Hmm.
theirs is. And then I just felt so bad for her because she couldn't move on.
Yeah.
Like her whole life was devoted to her sister, and it was so endearing, and yet I felt so bad for her because it's like as soon as something was going right, she was constantly having to worry no matter, and they were in different parts of the world, and,
Yeah.
and it was this constant, like, concern for her, that she stay medicated, stay healthy, and there's, Lucia just wanting to live and being out there,
Yeah.
So did you draw that, like, sister relationship from anything? Because I know I've related, like, scarily, like, you know
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's exactly my experience, but I feel like it's an experience. If you care for somebody else, whether it be a sibling or a parent or even a child who you can't control because you can't control another person,
Right.
but when you're in a situation where you care for somebody and they're doing something you're kind of powerless to stop or to help. um I feel like that was the kind of feeling that I drew from was,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of like wanting to help, but not being able to. And so I think that, that was a huge part of her character was that she's always been able to help. And then now you've got this situation where she just can't, or she can't figure out how to do it or how to do it right. Like whatever she does, it's not quite the right thing, or she feels she hasn't done enough, or she's, doing too much and she's meddling. So there is no right answer, I think, for her, and for all the characters in the book. They're faced with these choices,
Right.
and there's no right answer about what she really should have done. I think people might have done something differently in her position or not, but that was really what I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore the tension of not knowing what the right answer is, and because there is no right answer.
Well, that's what I thought you did really well because, I've had mental health issues in my family.
Hmm.
Not even realizing it actually until I read this book, and I was like, I get this a little bit. Not even because I think everybody can relate to a certain degree, and of course, I'm 53, so back then there wasn't a lot known. There
Yes.
wasn't a lot, out there about it. But what I kept thinking was like the way you did Miranda was that it's like you're right, like she didn't know, like she kept trying, but how do you go on living, like she wanted to go and have a life, but then she
Yeah.
was always like, and then she was like traveling around the world, just like leaving her phone number, like let me know if anything, and she'd fly from wherever just to take, it was just so, it was just like, you know and then
Yeah.
once Lucia becomes a mom, and then it takes on this whole other layer of,
Right.
you know and I don't
Right.
want to give away too much, so I'm trying to I'm trying not to give away anything that's been given away in your reviews. I always read the reviews and try to stay within those parameters, but so okay, this is your debut book. How did you come about this? I mean, you've been a writer, you've written in magazines, and then how did you yeah, you've written short stories, and then you just decided, like, okay, I'm gonna write a novel now, like I'm just gonna take it on.
Well, I really have just inched my way along this path. So the very first short story I wrote, it was probably a little more than 10 years ago, and it was published in 2009. And I wrote that story really for exactly one reason, and it was not that I wanted to be a writer. It was because I'd just gone through this experience where my mother had cancer, and she'd had it for a long time, and then she decided she wasn't going to do treatments anymore after several years and several relapses. And so I went home to be with her and basically to wait for her to die, you know.
I
And
understand. I
it
did the
was
same
a heavy
exact thing.
experience, but
Yeah.
while I was going through it, it was for, several weeks. I was in Buffalo, New York, and I just found that it wasn't only just tragic, it was also full of joy, and
Hmm.
it was it was fraught and charged, but it's also really mundane. And, we had good times, but we also fought just like we always did. And so, it was just, and there was a lot of love, but there was also a lot of guilt. There was just all these very contradictory emotions going through me. And I thought, that's what compels me about a story is when there's a lot of contradiction, things that don't quite fit, but you're like, how can it be possible? I'm feeling this and yet I'm feeling this. And so, stepping back from that experience, I just thought there's a great story in here and I really want to tell it. And so that was the sole reason for me to start writing. It wasn't that I had any visions of being a writer or anything. So I wrote that actually initially as a screenplay. And then, a couple years later, because the screenplay really didn't feel that satisfying because it wasn't finished. So I wrote it as a short story. And so that was my first short story. And then I just kind of inched my way along. I wrote a couple more short stories. And then when my kids were very young, I had this idea for a bigger project for this novel. And it was kind of the same thing. I had these predicaments that I felt like there was no good answer to. There were these conflicts I could think of, and I wanted to explore them, and I wanted to explore my characters. And so I thought, my second child was just turning 1, and I hadn't written in a couple of years, and I thought, if I'm gonna ever try to write a book, I know this is the book I want to write, and I should just try to do it now. So I had no idea if it would work, or I had no idea it would ever get published or anything.
And that's, it's so interesting because I think that short stories are really hard to write. Okay, I've read a lot of them and I talked to a lot of authors and I think to get a short story just right, like it's almost like you think a novel's like hard. I think to get the short story is difficult,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so I think that that's always good ground for, writing a
Yeah,
novel.
I think so. There's no way I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to write a book. It was just,
Too much
even when
to
I started, I was just like, I'll just try. I cannot think of an idea for the next chapter, the next section, So I just kind of took it a little bit at a time. I didn't try to think, oh, I'm going to write this grand novel, So
Right.
yeah,
I'm gonna
just
go
a
back.
little
I
bit.
want to find your short story because I had the same experience with my mom. I did the same thing with my mom, and so I can really relate to the
Oh,
different feelings. And she died of cancer too, but it was pretty quick. We didn't have
uh-huh,
time for treatment. It happened
uh-huh.
very very fast, over 3 months. But
Oh, wow.
when you say like fighting, yeah, we'd fight.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Didn't make things automatically like beautiful and better, It was just like the same dynamic, and we were trying, but it was just the same frictions, and
I know.
it was very interesting to me. That whole period was very interesting to me. Like, I don't know. I guess it's a funny word to say interesting, but when you kind of step back and you're like, look at this from a kind of human nature perspective,
Right.
and that's the kind of stuff that fascinates me. And so that was
Yeah,
just
and
what.
I love that you put it because I didn't really ever think about it like that.
Hmm.
Like I know what I went through, but I never
Yeah.
thought about the fact that, here she is dying and then some days she knew it and then other days she didn't know.
Uh,
Some
yeah.
days she was aware that she was dying and then other days when she'd fight with me, she was like
Yeah.
unaware that she was dying. And I kind of wanted to not fight because I was
Yeah, I know, right? You're like, you want to make it so special, but it isn't. It's still full of everything. So
Yeah, and I was 47 at the time. I'm 53 now. And I
Mhm.
remember like laying there with, she'd be sleeping and I'd be like, "Okay, I have questions. I got to ask this."
Yeah,
And she'd wake up and I'd try to ask questions. She'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I just, because you always think about that like when they're gone there are questions that you haven't asked and, but she wasn't having any of it, okay?
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's a time and I think that, most of us as women have to go through it
yeah.
more the time than not. So I definitely want to go back and read it. So anyway, but okay, so this book comes out, and everybody's loving it. Okay, so you just have to be. Not everybody can say that about a debut novel. Seriously, and I didn't even know it was a debut. I went on today onto your website. I'm like, oh my god, she doesn't have any other books out. Oh my god, like I could not believe it because of the way this book is put together. Couldn't have told at all. So. And it came out in January, so in case anyone's interested, and I'll have all of your links underneath here so they can find it. But what are you doing now? Like, are you now under contract? Are you writing more books?
I'm not under contract for anything, which is good because I think I wouldn't work well that way. So I have ideas for kind of for shorter things that I want to try writing. Maybe I'll start them out as short stories and see if they will evolve again. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's probably the better way for me to approach it again because the whole novel thing is pretty intimidating. But I do have these kind of scenarios that I'm interested in exploring, similar to the way how this started and how that short story started. Um, I have, some conflicts that I'm interested in exploring. So
How
I'm
long
always
did it
interested in
take you?
conflict.
How long did it take you to write this book from start to finish?
So I started it in earnest, like I want to write a book, in 2013. Um, and so it took me 2.5 years to get through 4 drafts. And then it was with my fourth draft that I found my agent. And then my agent and I did a little bit of work on it. And it was sold in 2016. And then my editor and I did another revision. Um, so it's been through, like, I would say 6 drafts, and started
Wow.
in 2013, but it also launched from a short story that was published back in 2010.
Right.
So when I wrote the short story, I didn't think that it was going to be a book. It was its own thing, but I
Right.
guess if you count that, then it's like it's been
A journey.
years or something. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I can almost tell when a book has been edited like that, because it's tight.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I read books, I can, it's like skip, 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 read, But I'm telling you, like every word, and that's how you can tell it's been really edited down and really
Yeah.
tight. That every sentence, not only that it's every sentence is important, what I found is that it was just so enjoyable. Like I loved being inside their heads,
Mhm.
and especially Lucia. Like I said, I was really drawn to her experience, and oh, I have my favorite quote. I just saw it on my little note sitting here. Okay, because I thought this just summed it up. When I go through a book and I find something that makes me stop and be like, now this is, and I think other people probably have said this to you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. But I don't want to suffer. I want to live. And that's when she was diagnosed, and she was diagnosed young, which to me it was like, oh my God, she got the worst, like she just, and when it's like, but she didn't want to suffer. Like she didn't want to go through. And it seemed like at times people around her were thinking that, and which I guess is kind of a thing of mental illness, is you start to think they can control this. Why are they
Right.
not control? Like, what is she
Yeah.
doing? You know,
Right.
like when she would do crazy little things. I loved how you had the other characters saying like, what are you doing? Like, just in the most simple thing. And then, she didn't understand. And it was almost like they expected her to be like, hello, like you're being weird, but she didn't even know,
Yeah. Hmm.
So I really like, I attached that quote just because of that. Cause it was like, she didn't want to, this wasn't
Yeah.
something she wanted to do, you
Right.
know,
Right.
it was
People
just,
are saying that's, what, people are ascribing that to her, but she doesn't want to take on that label. I think that's a big part of her also.
yeah, I don't know. It made me like, and that, like I said, I think other people, I think I looked on Goodreads or Amazon and I saw somebody else picked it up, and which
Mhm.
sometimes happens. And I don't know whether I get excited or not. Like I like to find quotes nobody's found, but then if nobody's found them, I'm like, but I want somebody else to find them. So I'm never happy about that. But it's just like it made me like pause, because I was like, I just thought that really summed up her character, in
Mhm.
the rest
Yeah.
of the book, because it's kind of early on, and it's like she didn't want to suffer. She did not want to
Yeah.
go through this. She was doing the
Right.
best she could do,
Yeah.
and she didn't want to take all that medicine, and she didn't
Yeah.
want to, because she didn't want to be numb,
Yes.
she wanted to feel.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I don't know. That
Absolutely.
was my take on it. So,
Yeah.
well,
Well,
thank you so much, Mira. This was so much fun, and I am so happy that I found your book. I really am.
it's
It was such a
much.
blessing to me, and I'm sure that all your fans have said that. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing it all over like I am, and people are just. It must be a very exciting time for you.
It is. It has been very exciting.
Well,
Yeah.
let us know if you decide to write another book, and
Okay.
get out there.
Definitely will. I'll definitely let you know.
Yes. All right. Have a great day. And like I said, Mira's links will be underneath here so you can find her. And thank you so much, Mira.
Thank you so much for having
Have a
me.
great day. Bye bye.
Bye.
Back. Wasn't that so good? I mean, Mira is so cute. I love talking to her. I feel so blessed to have been able to talk to her. I'm telling you, I saw this book all over Instagram. People are going crazy, not just because the cover's amazing. This is such a great story, and don't be intimidated by the fact that mental illness is involved here, because these characters are so lovable, and it gives you a whole different aspect of it. And thank you so much, Mira. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you, guys. All of her links will be underneath here.